Meet Perry Hodder, my Wonderlands wizard. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a Borderlands spin-off game inspired by Dungeons & Dragons, as everyone knows. D&D and other fantasy games always have had the draw of power fantasy, whether you want to be an epic fighter, a magical wizard, or a sneaky rogue. And today, I wanted to play a wizard. So I want to ask the question, can you beat Tiny Tina's Wonderlands without using guns? The rules for this run are short and sweet. No guns, only fists and staff, and I have to stick to a wizard theme. Sticking to a wizard theme is part of the rules, therefore character creation is part of the run. Leading me to choose my character background, Failed Monk. This background lowers our critical chance and critical damage. In exchange, we get spell cooldown and status damage. For our class, we're going spell shot, baby. And I'll talk about the other build specifics later on in the run, but let's just get into it. Tina drops our character onto the table. We start to get our footing together, when unfortunately, the very first task that Tina wants us to accomplish is to acquire a melee weapon that we can't even use. I admire it real quick though, it does look pretty cool, I ain't gonna lie. And then I dish the item out of my inventory and continue to proceed. Our first and most important task is to get a spell. We need a spell desperately. Without a spell, our only way to deal damage is... Wait. Can you guess it? Yeah, that's right. We're punching them. I proceeded to just keep punching these Mr. Krabs wannabes. But then, for our next task, Tina told me that we needed to follow the bus stallion trail just to lead the plot. This eventually leads us to our next quest objective, which is getting a gun. The game forces guns into your inventory and it makes you equip them multiple times. It happens a bunch. So every time I get one, I just unequip it and throw them out later. I personally try to avoid selling things that I can't use during the runs just to keep them a bit more challenging. So for the most part, I'll only be selling spells. After getting rid of the gun, we have to make our way to the overworld by passing through an ominous village that just so happens to be possessed by the largest amount of skeletons I've ever seen. I started punching them one by one. It's oddly fun watching them fall over after they get punched by a 5-foot, 100-pound wizard child. Dude, this is... With these skeletons somehow getting destroyed by my easy breezy punches, I couldn't proceed due to an unfortunate broken wall. The only way to get by is to blow up these barrels and then proceed. I punch the barrels. I mean, I have the spirit of brick in me. Nice. Punch and brute force my way through anything. Okay. In hindsight, there was probably a barrel nearby I could have used to blow up the wall, but I'll allow the first death to be by an inanimate object. Now that we defeated the formidable broken stone wall, we must pursue even more skeletons within the inner village. I don't know why there's so many. I continued fisting them with the full power that Perry Hodder could possibly muster. Hey, 7 damage is better than 0 damage. In past runs, I've had it much... Sorry, I don't know. This guy. Anyway, What? Oh my god, you're so cute. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, in past runs, I've had it much worse. Speaking of 7 damage, the enemies do not output much damage either. So to spice it up and have a little fun, I'd go for jump kills every now and then. It was technically faster since you like punch and jump at the same time. After getting all my jumping out of the way, the game spawns a mandatory badass skeleton mob. I know for a fact I would not beat him by trading blows and hand-to-hand combat, so I used my brain for once, lure him over to a nearby barrel, and I casted Barrelmancy on him, the way Gale of Waterdeep taught me. I missed, but the poor guy was dumb enough to just jump into the ice cloud. I then had to pull him back somewhere so I could easily take care of him. For whatever reason, this guy had a very long jumping animation, and he never seems to use any ranged attacks. So I could just break his AI by going up and down on this little driveway each time. And then once he got low, I had to just assert some dominance, and you know what I mean. I jumpied on him, I ain't gonna lie. Defeating him leveled us up to level 2, which unlocks our action skill, but we can't use our action skill. Even though Polymorph is technically a spell, it's not a spell in Wonderlands, so we won't get an action skill until level 7. In the meantime, I'm going to put points in the spell cooldown rate, so once we have a spell, we can spam them. Speaking of spells, that guy was the only real obstacle besides a couple of frail skeletons who happen to be weak to punching. I proceeded into the village crypt to grab my first spell. I broke the entry floor into the basement, tested out our new spell on some skeletons. We may have gotten a spell, but the cooldown is so long that it's not really much of a power spike. It does provide us with a safer way to deal damage to enemies from range, but at the cost of waiting for the cooldown. The door nearby led us to the first boss of the run, Ribula. With this challenge run in particular, even though the later game bosses are more difficult on a normal playthrough, the earlier bosses in this playthrough were actually some of the most difficult. Ribula did a surprising amount of damage. He would take my entire shield and nearly bring me down to health gain in one attack, but thankfully I could just run around the room, wait on my cooldowns and chip him down. I wanted to kill him with jump damage, but anytime you get close to him, he does this AoE attack that could two-shot me. Especially if it applies a dot, I'm just dead. This fight was very long as is, so I just decided to play it safe and finish him off with a spell. Also, I promised no more jump kills. I'm done with the jump kills. After defeating Ribula, I went over to go and destroy the giant chaos crystal that spawns in the north side of the room. Turns out that this crystal ends up just being the Dragon Lord. He quickly gives me some friendly glaze, saying I'm like a super tough guy and I'm awesome and all that, and then he disappears. I proceed to the next room, and in this chest there is a cryo meteor spell. Would you look at it? And there's also a purple shield. Throughout the run, I'm always going to have to prioritize having the largest shield capacity possible, while ignoring other aspects of my shield such as shield delay. There's two skills in the spell shot tree that work really well in tandem, the mage armor and the glass cannon skills. Both of these skills increase your spell weaving stacks, which increase your spell damage at the cost of only being able to recharge your shield with spell casts. After beating the tutorial boss, we unlocked the overworld. I jumped straight into an enemy encounter as the game suggested. I tested out the meteor spell, but it was lackluster. Although the damage is higher, spells with a really long cooldown are generally not worth using. Because we took the failed monk backstory, we get a bit of extra damage from overtime sources, and damage over time sources in this game end up doing the same amount of damage as the original spellcast or more, especially this early in the game. I made my way over to the Moolah Shrine. This thing will be a huge boon for us. We need XP, we need cash, and this thing gives it to us. We're not trying to sell anything besides spells and cosmetics, so we really need this. This quest leads us to a couple of other dungeons. In general, these dungeons aren't really worth doing. Small amount of XP, small amount of loot. In general, you want to prioritize collectibles, farming bosses, and completing side quests. If a dungeon is part of a side quest, do it, but I wouldn't go out of your way to do these dungeons unless you want the stuff for the shrine. The Moolah Shrine is now ours, and we can finally start making our way back to Brighthoof. In a turn of events, the city conveniently went under siege the moment I happened to go anywhere near it. This means we have to fight our way through another army of skeletons in order to reach the castle. I jumped into the fray and immediately began punching away at all the different sketty bones that got in my way. I quickly learned that the enemies were scaling a bit harder than I was. The only real benefit I've gained since I acquired my first spell was cooldown rate. I beelined to the nearest building and used it as cover to break line of sight of the ranged enemies. This part of the playthrough is mostly just staying in cover, peeking a bit, and waiting on spell cooldowns, and then casting them to make sure you take out all of the enemies that are dangerous. After using my wizardry to banish a couple of skeletons, I made my way over to meet the one and only Paladin Mike. First of all, I have no clue why Mike's player sheet decided not to pop up in the cutscene. It made me giggle a little bit. Second, I never understood why Paladin Mike was just Lorelei from Borderlands 3. They're like the same copy-paste character. It feels like they just took a suit of rune armor from old school RuneScape, painted it with a little bit of butt stallion decals, and threw it on Lorelei and called it a day. My assumption is just that Lorelei is like the online friend that Tina claims to borrow the character from. After asking me for free GP, Mike reminded us that we needed to go and continue on our quest and take out the catapults that are laying siege to the castle. As I said last time, our strategy did not really change. I hung to the rooftops, but the rooftops also provide the added benefit of having chests on them frequently. I was able to acquire a shield and the spell upgrade that I desperately needed, as survivability and damage output were what we were currently lacking. This allowed me to make my way back to the ground and weave some punches and barrelmancy back into the gameplay loop. The first catapult we needed to destroy was being guarded by a rock troll. These guys tend to have a much chunkier health pool than the past enemies we've been fighting, and they also force you to move out of cover and dodge their attacks. I zapped him and moved on to the catapult. I was really nervous when I was walking up to the catapult. Quest objectives are always barriers in challenge runs. End runs require you to break the rules or to change the rules in order to continue. Thankfully, No worries. This quest objective is totally capable of being completed using spells. I made my way over to the next catapult, blew it up, watched it get put back into place, and was launched across the river to go take out the last one. I blasted my way through the skeletons, destroyed the last catapult, and then made my way across this new randomly appearing bridge. That dude from the Grand Exchange was back asking me to help defend the castle. It took me a long time, but I let Mike use their rune skimmy to slash through most of the trolls when I got bored and decided to see what the longest head jump chain I could get was. Oh, 6! We got 6! Wait, who's that guy dancing on the left part of the screen? Get out of the run, dude. I don't even know what this guy's doing here, or why he's just dancing so much. I think he's starting to lose a bit of his sanity after watching his spells recharge over and over. Anyway, I'll get rid of that guy later. Let's get back to the run. After fighting through the city streets, we had to clear out the town square and save our queen. I casted a couple spells, turned this guy into a windmill. On a side note, I swear the devs tried to make every enemy in this game ragdoll all the time on purpose. It's happened non-stop throughout the run. I'm not complaining. Like, it's funny. It makes me laugh. But you'll see later on how even more ridiculous this gets. Also, I told you I'd get rid of this guy. I hope he doesn't come back. As a reward for saving the town, Paladin Mike gave us a class mod that we're not even able to use. It's not better than one that we already have. And soon after, we were introduced to Butt Stallion. Butt Stallion told us that we needed to travel to a nearby graveyard and clear out the tombs to help secure the safety of the surrounding village. I followed her and then quickly made my way over to the graveyard, where I was quickly meted by Zomboss, the 999th zombie skeleton I've had the pleasure of running into so far. I should have picked a different class, like Cleric. It would have made this run a joke. Thankfully, the spell we got on the rooftop earlier was a poison spell, which works against armor, I think. I mean, it should, right? The bony enemies have such a small health pool that element matching doesn't really matter even on insane difficulty. The major downside of not using a gun here at this point in time is that our spell weaving stacks never have the chance to stack up. So until we have access to casting more spells, the amount of time it takes for us to take down enemies is always going to be a long time. I kept blasting and punched down Bussy, who'd finally let me pass on to the next section. This then gave us a free chest in which we acquired a free dark magic spell. We're going to use this in a second. While I was jump spotting these skeletons, I was able to reach level 7. I immediately equipped the most significant jump in power we would receive the entire run, Ambidextrous. This simply allows us to equip 2 spells at once. It also has the added benefit of letting us cycle our spell cooldowns. By paying attention to when I cast spells, I can start building up spell weaving stacks. For those who are unfamiliar with how spell weaving stacks in Wonderlands, every time you reload or cast a spell, you gain 1 stack of spell weaving that lasts about 10 seconds. Each stack gives you a considerable damage bonus to spells. Later on at max stacks, you nearly double your spell damage. That's what makes level 7 the main tipping point. On my way through the tombs, I saw this creepy little guy running through the hallway. I've played this game many times, and this was the first time I actually paid attention to this. Kind of embarrassing considering how obvious it is. This mimic chest is the perfect time to showcase how quickly our character has gotten stronger now that we're level 7. Just a couple of spells and letting the damage over time take out the mimic made it easy done and dusted. We had to take the tome the mimic had back to the catacombs entrance. Now that this is opened up to the lower level, we can start heading to fight the boss. Of course, the boss we have to fight is the same Zombussy. This boss room is not ideal, but for the most part I would just do my best to keep distance. Luckily the spells I have match the elements needed to make this boss easier. This room is full of health potions, and whenever I go down there's always an easy enemy for me to use in order to get a second wind. We defeated Zomboss and we were able to free the Sword of Souls. I picked up the sword, took it back to Brighthoof. Paladin Mike then wanted me to tour the town and check out some things. I headed over to the bar and decided that Perry was ready for his sorting ceremony. I gave him his hat, and he decided instead of joining a wizard house, he just wanted to keep the hat. So, fine, I guess? I went back to the town square, and Paladin Mike suddenly fell to the ground, and Butt Stallion was missing. I'm not really sure where the queen went, but Paladin Mike told us that to get her back, we needed to cross the ocean. I made my way over to the docks to try and figure out a way to cross the ocean. Thankfully, I have been working on my woodcutting and construction skills, so I was able to craft a boat. The issue was that our boat would sink if we didn't have a bard in our party. I was told by the townsfolk that there's a bard nearby in the wee wild dankness. I made my way over to go recruit a bard, but to my surprise, there's just a giant meteor blocking the path to the wheat wild. To clear the path, I need a magical tool that was located conveniently in a nearby dungeon. I jumped right into the dungeon and cleared out the enemies. Clearing out the first room of the dungeon rewarded me with a chest. I opened the chest to find a legendary spell. the Reviver of Magnitude. I tested the spell out on the rest of the dungeon rooms. It did some pretty solid damage, but the spell is more so designed for resurrecting teammates than it is for dealing damage. Nonetheless, it was still a pretty big upgrade. I grabbed the magic key I needed in order to get rid of the meteor and cleared the path. Unfortunately, the Weewild Dankness was a level 11 area. I would not normally mind heading into a higher level zone. It's generally just faster, and the difficulty spike usually isn't enough of a hindrance that I couldn't move on. But without being able to use guns and this early into the game, I'm at a considerable disadvantage. I decided to go do side quests instead. I built some sculptures for this woman, collected some ores for this alchemist, and then made my way over to Mount Craw. Jar, the leader of the goblins tired of forced oppression, was here, asking me to help them out with their plans. I agreed, and I followed her along. She brought me to this magic barrier that I needed to destroy. Remember earlier when I said that usually the number one thing that prevents challenge runs from being done is usually quests and quest requirements? Well, it just so happens that even when I tried to punch and I tried to use spells on this barrier, it wouldn't complete the objective. So I just decided that I would leave and go do the Weewild Dankness while underleveled regardless. Worst case scenario, I level up from fighting the enemies over time. Thankfully, the Weewild Dankness is full of side quests, and one of them in particular has a pretty strong reward for my build. I made my way straight over to Claptrap in order to try and acquire the Holy Spell Nade. Claptrap took me over to this lady at the lake. He told this poor woman that she was stinky and that I could beat the shit out of her and made me duel her to the death. I put the lady down real quick for Claptrap. We then had to go meet Merlin to get the spell nade. I grabbed a quest while on my way to Merlin. Oh wait, I guess his name is Mervin? I never noticed that. Anyways, thanks to Claptrap, I got banished to Wizard Prison. Claptrap then bailed me out and we fought Mervin together. I shot a couple spells and took them down to receive the Holy Spell Nade. Problem is, the Holy Spell Nade is level 12, so we can't even use it until we do more side quests. Thankfully, I grabbed as many as I could, and I made my way to the Tooth Fairy. I gave them the teeth, and then I headed over to help the Smurfs. When I showed up, the town was already being invaded. I slid into a couple Smurfs, and I felt like Fedzilla trampling Tokyo. The one of the Smurfs hit me with the menacing T-pose and slashed me. It was easier to just punch the Smurfs than it was to wait for my cooldowns to come back. So I started throwing haymakers in between spells. I saved the Smurfs and their queen, which really got me close to level 12, and gave me a rocket launcher that I immediately threw away. After that, I made my way to meet up with the local bard, Mr. Torg. We went with Torg to go clean up the Weewild Dankness and reach level 12 to try out the Holy Spell Nade. The Holy Spell Nade is a repeating cast spell, which is really beneficial for keeping our spell weaving stacks up. It did solid damage and it set us up for success. We made our way through the forest and eventually had to fight Banshee. The Holy Spell Nade was really nice for this boss fight. A fire spell against a flesh boss? Yeah, boy. Please. I ducked and dodged her wails while shooting her with the Spell Nade. Unfortunately, Mr. Torg blocked my path while trying to give me bardic inspiration and led to me getting down. I panicked and started to shoot Banshee with the Spell Nade. I barely got a second wind off the nearby skull. Not being able to see your spell cooldowns in a fight is really stressful. We defeated Banshee, saw a nice loot explosion, and then the Punch Father showed up. Torg and I went back to Brighthoof so we could bless my ship with a bard's blessing and had a nice little jam sesh. After that, he wanted to blow up the ocean. I don't really care as long as I can cross the ocean, so I just watched the masterpiece unfold.
That is not how magic missile works.
But what about the whales? I care about nature!
It's so beautiful! New ocean, I'll see you in hell!
Blowing up the ocean allowed us to unlock our subclass. I decided to opt for the Graveborn tree. It has plenty of skills that boost your spell damage, spell cooldown rate. It counteracts the negative effects of the spell shot's glass cannon style. I went into the reef to start making my journey towards the Dragon Lord and to save Queen Butt Stallion. But again, I am underleveled. It seems as though side quests in this game are more so mandatory than recommended. In Borderlands 3, I can usually skip most of the side quests and just focus on doing collectibles. In hindsight, it would have been much better if I tried to farm some bosses for gear and XP, but my character was too weak to be able to farm them efficiently. If it takes me 15 to 30 minutes to kill a boss, it's probably better and just more enjoyable to do the side quests anyway. I made my way over to the Tangled Drift. I acquired a new Ice Spike spell. I got this spell from doing a lot of the fetch quests. The Ice Spike spells in Wonderlands are arguably the best non-legendary spells, or at least some of the best. They have low cooldowns, solid damage, high crit chance, and Cryo Element is one of the best elements in Wonderlands in general. It's a do-it-all status effect that slows enemies, freezes them, which makes them take even more damage, and it also applies a dot for some reason. I jumped into the boss room to fight Parasite, one of the beefier bosses in Wonderlands. He has 3 health bars. With the Ice Spike spell and the Holy Spell Nade, I was able to chunk down his shields and health pretty fast. I blew him up when he was down to his bone bar, and then he dropped a legendary. A wizardly legendary. I got really excited when I saw it. Its name was a Wizard's Pipe. Would this be the one gun that I could actually use in this run? A wizard themed gun? I decided not to use it. No guns were part of the rules. And I looked up the legendary effect to see if it was even like a spell-focused gun, like if it would be cool for a wizard run, but it just didn't fit the theme at all. It was just kind of like a normal SMG that shot out some balls. I made my way back outside to talk to the alchemist. He needed a reagent in order for us to open the path to Warguth's Shallows. I accepted his quest and went to go grab what he needed. I sped through the dungeon that he needed me to complete, exterminating as many crabs as I could. I grabbed the reagent that he needed out of this chest. He used it to make a potion that we could use to open the entrance to Warguth's Shallows. After entering, I booked my way straight to Bones 3wood. Our next task is to get through Warguth's Shallows. Bones 3wood told us in order to pass, we needed to help him reform his crew and his boat. So first things first, he wanted to repair his good old friend Polly. I went to grab all the pieces we need for Polly. I hit this launcher to go ahead and grab this eye patch. Ran into this boat to go and grab his little itty bitty flappers. And then I scooped up his squeaker. I picked up Polly's core and head back to Bones to go put Polly back together. Bones told us that we needed to follow Polly because Polly would lead us to his old crew and we needed to recruit them back. They wouldn't join us, so I just started harassing them. I walked up to this guy over here and I just punched this. And then they got mad, so I just started murdering them all. A pirate's no match for a wizard. What are they going to do, stab me? The rest of his crew challenged me to a dance battle, so I'm over here dancing with these guys. I couldn't beat their sick moves, so I blew this up out of spite. The old ship was occupied by a rival pirate's crew, LeChance. Bones told me I needed to kill all the crew, so I blasted a couple of them with my spells, blew them away, and now that I'm later in the game and have max spell weaving stacks, extremely low cooldowns, and lots of extra general spell damage bonuses, a lot of the enemies were just absolutely getting steamrolled. After following orders and slaughtering a bunch of LeChance's crew, I was told to go and fight the head honcho LeChance himself, so let's go do that. LeChance is a really slow boss, and most of his attacks are just melee attacks. He has a couple of ranged attacks that he can throw out at you, but for the most part, he just kind of chases you around the boss arena. Thankfully, my Ice Spike spell did a crap load of damage to him, and my spell weaving stacks were just massively buffing my damage. LeChance was a super easy boss, easy done and dusted. From here on out, it should only get even easier, right? Like, I just keep scaling and scaling and getting stronger. After defeating LeChance, him and Bones 3wood decided to make up, and because they made up, they gave me the key to access the next area. So I made my way to the next area. When I entered into the overworld, an NPC named Margravine, I don't know how to pronounce her name, told me I needed to do a nearby dungeon to cross into the next area. Yay, dungeons! I ran over to that dungeon, completed it very quickly, and then returned with the goods. I don't really understand the point of this. Like, why not just give me more XP for the last quest? That was like pointless. But anyway, When she does this, it releases this invisible bridge. I was level 17, and apparently I needed to be level 21 to match the level of the enemies in the Drowned Abyss. I decided that my character was strong enough that I could just blow through this area, and the higher level enemies would probably give enough extra XP that I wouldn't have to worry about it. I entered the Drowned Abyss and talked to Kisara, who told us that we needed to do a ritual in order to pass through the Abyss. We collected all the different pieces that we needed for the ritual to be completed and gave them to her, and then she killed herself. Yeah. Shout out Kisara for letting us get through and complete the ritual. We made our way along and headed towards the boss fight, which happened to be Dryl. I only gained one level in between that I entered the boss fight and I got to Dryl, as it's a pretty short section of the story. Usually the main win condition for a lot of these boss fights is being able to survive long enough and sustain enough ammo in order to eventually defeat the boss. We have no worries about ammo, as our only limitation is for spell cooldowns, but as the level cap in Wonderlands is only 40, a 4 level difference is actually pretty substantial. I was unable to survive the damage from the additional enemies and the boss. My spells had not been upgraded. I would go down and die after a couple of long fought attempts, and I decided levels were a necessity. As my survivability is an issue, the only way to solve the problem without farming for gear is leveling, so I decided to go get some levels. I cleared out some local dungeons and fetch quests. Crackmass Cove is nearby, so I went there to continue training Perry. The first quest I received was from an old man who oddly resembles Geppetto, and wants to save his son, who recently turned into a puppet. I collected some pieces and then was confronted by some pirates who were guarding one of the pieces. Geppetto tried to talk them into giving him the piece of the puppet, but he failed the charisma check and things got quickly violent. I blasted the pirates for him and then grabbed the leg that we needed for his son. Nearby was a monolith statue. These reward a good chunk of XP and sometimes loot, so I decided to bang it out real fast. I blasted the totem boss Lycia with a couple of my ice spells, and then went back to go meet up with Geppetto. He told us we needed to enter the belly of a massive fish beast, as an evil coiled queen lived there and held his son captive. I slid my way down the beast's innards, found his boy's head, and started my battle with Vincetta, another coiled mini-boss. A couple of spells later and she was literally drained to ashes, but thankfully she dropped a legendary. The pincushion of mirth is a melee weapon we aren't allowed to use, so I just left it there. With all the puppet pieces and the queen defeated, Geppetto and I were able to resurrect his son, and Geppetto instantly died right after. I guess his only willpower he had left was to save his son, and now that he accomplished his goal, he was ready to move on. I leveled up and made my way over to Auntie's Anchor Shark Shack to go have a play date with Pookie. Pookie nibbled my leg a bit, so I gave them a couple of good pets, and then I walked them over to the park so they could relax for a bit. The other people at the park for some reason did not vibe with Pookie. The people in the park voted to ban Pookie, so I watched Pookie ban the townsfolk for a bit. I took Pookie back to Auntie and Pookie turned on me, so I had to show Pookie who's boss, and I flung a couple of spells their way. I then punched Pookie's collar off and they went back to normal. I love Pookie. As a reward, Pookie gave me their chew toy, which I couldn't use, but it's the thought that counts. It was time to do the main questline for this area, so I headed over to Phil, who was on trial for disrupting the local pirate folk. We decided to rescue him. I went behind and pulled the lever to try and get him out of the box, but then he was lifted away. The nearby pirates ambushed me for attempting to break out a prisoner, so I quickly dispatched them and went on my way. We needed to find evidence to absolve Phil from the crimes that he said to have been committed. I grabbed the directions to his cave and then was stopped by a very obvious Skyrim-like puzzle. I entered the home and yanked on the interior decorations until one of them gave me his certificate of non-evilness. I went to go meet up with Phil, opened the gate to the next area by pushing this cartoonishly old bomb, and got sidetracked by this floating ghost head named Rude Alex. What can I say? It's really hard not to get sidetracked in this game. Alex led us to another very obvious puzzle where I had to match the length of the cannons to the order in which I punched them to open a gate. After entering the gate, I fought through a large amount of pirates that dropped me a legendary spell, the Twister. The Twister is a massive damage boost for us. It has a low cooldown, good crit chance, stuns enemies, and it has 2 elemental properties, making it effective against a larger amount of enemies. This spell is also a ragdoll machine that flies larger enemies across the map and spins them into a tornado. The spell actually reminds me of the movie it's referencing. Every time I send a dogfish flying, I just see the cow scene from the movie. Alex wanted us to sabotage these pirates' potion batch. It took me a while to find this random skull I needed, but we grabbed it. We soon learned that these pirates were turning locals into wargs so they could steal all their belongings after. Perry couldn't have that, so he murdered them all. The quest rewarded us with another spell, the Snowballing Great Wake. I did not really use this spell because the Twister and Ice Spike spells are stronger even at lower levels, and this spell couldn't hit any enemies who weren't touching the ground. We went back to getting evidence for Phil and destroying the totems. The townspeople were upset at him for putting these around in the first place. Every totem we smashed would lead to dogfish showing up, which led us to believe that the totems were dogfish repellent, and in all reality, Phil just wanted to protect the pirate folk. We made our way to the court gates to let the local government know we were acting as his defense attorney and we needed to be let in, but the locals weren't having it. I wasn't sure what else to do, so I would just blast them all away in self-defense. Otherwise, how else would I make it to court on time? We showed up to court and it ended up going a bit like this.
Court is now in session. The somewhat honorable Judge Boyle presiding.
That Phil is not evil. A royal certificate of non-evilness.
Objection!
Overruled!
Hold it!
You can't do that! Keep up these shenanigans, and I'll hold you in contempt of court and in general. I don't want to die!
The judge denied all of my irrefutable evidence, so we only had one option: to fight. After breaking that totem and unleashing the dogfish, I just murdered them all. What else are we supposed to do? I mean, Phil did nothing wrong. As a reward for saving Phil, he gave us a gun we couldn't use, so I just threw it right back at him. The nerve of this guy. Giving the obvious wizard a gun after he saved your life is in bad taste. We are now level 21 with much better spells, shields, and more skill points. I went back to Dryl to finish what I started and put Moist Daddy Neptune in his place. This time around he got absolutely destroyed. I would just cast my spells on him and it would only take a couple casts to shred his entire HP bar. After doing all that side questing to prepare for Dryl and finally defeating him, we have to do even more side questing. Not really, they gave us a one-time pass and we just went straight to Karnak's wall. After entering, we met up with Wastard, who asked us to collect magical hourglasses we would need to harness enough magical energy to break through a barrier that's blocking the pathway to the pyramid. I quickly went and I gathered all of the different hourglasses. After collecting those, we had to go fight Wastard himself. He would actually do a surprisingly large amount of damage. He would take me down to Health Gate after almost one attack, but thanks to the skills we have on our skill tree, we were able to heal our health and shields alongside every spellcast, making it a lot easier to maintain survivability. I would frequently go down, but the nearby skeletons were very easy to get second winds off of, and I would accidentally get second winds frequently. We quickly finished off Wastard and he opened the way for us. I made my way back to the overworld, and again we are underleveled. Therefore, we must embark on more side quests to train for our fight with the Dragon Lord. It makes sense. No D&D campaign always goes on a straight course to the end. I did a nearby dungeon for some XP and then went to go meet Geralt of Rivia, who wanted us to help him slay a giant coiled queen. He was talking a lot of smack about he was the main hero of the story, and then this happened. Yeah, he didn't last very long. Love the Witcher reference though. We killed Celissa in his honor, and then as a reward we were greeted by a harem of tentacle fish women. I'm starting to think Geralt's main motivation wasn't to save the world, but he had an ulterior motive here. Now that we leveled up a bit, I made my way to Asu Gold Necropolis. I immediately started clearing the place out and activating the shrines. The longer the challenge goes on, the stronger my character gets, and the faster I get through each section. But one issue we're having now is my spells are about level 20, and I haven't gotten an upgrade since we got the Twister, so my damage is falling off quite a bit. But the level 20 spells are still holding up here at about level 25. Which says a lot about the Ice Spike spell, which is doing most of the work. After clearing out the shrines, we made our way to the end of the zone where a butt stallion Frankenstein monster named Nightmare is waiting for us. Nightmare was a bit more difficult than some of the prior bosses, due to their aggressive nature and some of the boss's mechanics not being very easy to dodge. She would knock us down, but like a lot of the other Wonderlands bosses, they compensate for the bosses hitting you so often, and the boss rooms not having a lot of safe spots by having a ton of trash mobs nearby that you can use to secure a quick second wind. It seems to be a running theme. We defeated Nightmare for a nice level up, and then the Dragon Lord decided to give us his village origin story. The Dragon Lord's speech here is him talking about all the wrongdoings Tina has done to him and how he has a need for free will. But I've always interpreted this scene as the writers trying to point out that the Dragon Lord's dilemma represents Tina's grief and the survivor's guilt she feels after losing Roland. After the Dragon Lord's speech, we headed to the Dragon Lord Castle, the Pyramid, but the requirement for this area is level 30. The only main quest I've missed so far I'm locked out of because it requires a gun, so I resorted to just doing the nearby dungeons and overworld fetch quests to hit level 30. Little did I know the hardest fight of the entire run, or at least for me personally, was within this side area. A mini-boss enemy known as the Eros Wyvern. This mini-boss enemy refills a large amount of its health bar whenever he hits you with a signature attack. With him being level 27, and my only good spell drops so far being level 20, it took me over an hour to whittle down his health. I would try my best to hug these pillars and line of sight the Wyvern, so they couldn't get their lifesteal attacks on me, but if I didn't focus the ads, they would frequently push me out of cover. These coiled enemies are really frustrating when you use spells because they dodge a lot of the attacks. I'm not sure if they actually do, but it feels like they have iframes, so even if you predict their dodge, they make me waste a spell charge by iframing that spell, but I could just be missing. After shooting him around the pillars for a while, he slowly lost his health, and then when he finally died, he dropped a legendary shield. The shield he dropped is the Undead Pact, which ended up being a really good shield for our build. Since our shield recharges every time we cast a spell, it would break often, and the Undead Pact would send homing skulls onto enemies and deal damage. The enchantment on the shield also gave us a nice damage boost to our spells. I went back to Karnak's Wall as I ran out of side quests and I needed to backtrack to do more. I found a repeatable quest that gives XP and drops a lot of spells, but sadly we didn't get any significant upgrades farming the Ancient Powers questline. It does give a lot of XP. It's about 7 or 8 quests in one long quest line, and it gives you a lot of marginal upgrades through spells and even some guns, which I couldn't take. This streamlined the leveling process and made it pretty enjoyable. For anyone starting a new playthrough, I recommend finding this guy and doing his quest line. The issue now was my best spells were still around level 20. I had some okay spells of a higher level, but they would have a lower critical chance on longer cooldown times, meaning less damage in long fights, more damage in short ones, which doesn't help us if they don't one-shot enemies, as opposed to a consistent good damage of our old repeat cast spells. I went back and farmed for ice spike spells at the vending machines in Brighthoof. I got 2 blue rarity ice spikes with solid crit chance and crit damage, putting me over 70% crit chance. I had spell damage rings with crit chance and new and improved class mods. I had spent very little money up to this point, and because we got the Moolah Shrine at the beginning, I was able to save up enough for this final fight. Just to show how impactful the upgrades were, look at how fast these level 31 enemies are being put down. I made my way through the pyramid, which for the most part is just a long mobbing section of skeletons very similar to the start of the game, but with a couple traps and puzzles in between. We finally made it to the Dragon Lord. With our upgraded spells, we were ending up able to do tons of damage to the Dragon Lord. Now you might be thinking, wait, that's not that impressive. But if you look at the bottom of the screen here, you can see the main source of my increased spell damage, the entire reason we even took Spell Shot in the first place, was to get spell weaving stacks, which are not active. A good majority of our damage input is not even active, or there's just a UI bug and it's not showing on the screen. Either way, all that Batman with prep time made the Dragon Lord a cakewalk. We put him down and he was the easiest boss of the run. It seems like we've answered the question. Yes, you can very easily beat Tiny Tina's Wonderlands without guns. But that's not all. I'm going to do a little bit of bonus content. It's not very much, so if you guys did stay for this long, thank you. Please like and subscribe and maybe check out my other videos. Love y'all. For those who are staying, I'm going to talk a little bit about the endgame. The game seems to scale so you can build into archetypes without guns, but the main story and early parts of the game try to shy you away and treat it more like a main franchise game. I love Wonderlands, it's probably my favorite game in the series, but I do wish they gave a bit more freedom and found a way to make the game more open to other strategies than just guns. I get it, the Borderlands franchise and this game are looter shooters, I'm not saying to take that away. I just wish they made like a full melee and full magic build feel better to play. But I want to do more. I want to try and do some of the endgame content, so I'm going to try and level up to level 40 with the goal of taking on the Chaos Chambers and maybe the raid bosses. Before the victory lap, I did a little bit of a mini lap on top of Butt Stallion, trying to ride her like a horse, man. I just want to ride her around, dude. Like, why hasn't there been a Borderlands game where you can like travel on Butt Stallion instead of like a car? I made my way to the PLC bosses to try and level up. The first PLC boss is Amelka the Sandwich. I've never done any of these but the shark one, and I did that one earlier in the recording. But yeah, this boss was really easy. Everything after the Dragon Lord so far has just been like massively a joke. I tried to do PLC 3, but this one required me to use a cannon to deal damage to a door in order to proceed. So this was one that I couldn't do. I save quit and then just went to PLC 4. This PLC 4 boss is really cool. It's kind of like the dragon from Skyrim, the Helgen dragon. But I just kind of camped in this tower, jumped off, shot him, and he wasn't too bad. Thankfully, that boss arena had a lot of like cover and easy places to stay so that I could just always be in like a safe position and just shoot him. I did Chaos Chambers to unlock Chaos 1 and then went to go farm LeChance. He's one of the best farms, especially after you beat the game. He spawns you right next to vending machines, and it's really, really fast to get to him. I know every boss farm is like a vending machine farm, but you just kind of go down here, you kill him once, and then you change your mayhem level, and it just resets it again. So you can just do it, rinse and repeat, and it doubles up as a vending machine farm and like whatever his loot pool is. I farmed him for about an hour, and after about an hour of farming, I finally hit level 40. I was super excited. I went into my inventory to start placing points. I wanted to do the end game. And then I noticed that my crit chance and spell cooldown were like massively buffed. I had over 100% crit chance. That means I got like 30% from hitting level 40, which shouldn't be the case. And then I took the nerd archetype at the beginning, so I really shouldn't have 100%. And then I realized it turns out the real challenge of this run was being smart enough to wipe my profile save before I even started the challenge. So you can't turn myth rank off. It just automatically turns on at level 40, so you have to play on a brand new save if you want none and just never put the points in. I've never played Wonderlands without myth rank, so I was unaware that at level 40 it just turns on. So it turns out that the entire run is completely invalid. Roast me in the comments if you like. This whole run is invalid, so I'm sure it's been done before, but if anyone else has done it, this one doesn't count. But I have no desire to try and complete the end game and do more of the challenges with the myth rank enabled. It's too massive of a damage boost. After turning this on and trying stuff out, it was way too. The game had been the easiest it's ever been. But if you guys want to see more, like if you want me to, I will wipe my entire profile save. I don't really care, and I'll try and do the end game stuff. Like I'll try and kill Tina and some of the other bosses, like the raid bosses with whatever I'll try melee only, spell only. I don't care. We can try doing little shroom pet only. It's up to you guys. And whatever ideas you guys have, whatever you want to see, just leave it in the comments. If you actually watch this far, I thank you so much. I love you guys. I'll make more. The more subs and likes I get, like if I make any money doing this, which I don't think I will, I'll reinvest it, dude. I'll buy a better mic. I'll get a better computer. That's what I plan to do if this does do well, because I love doing this. It's fun. So like and subscribe. Share the video if you thought it was good. I thought it was okay. But yeah, if you guys got any ideas, I got a couple ideas brewing up. So, and I plan to do a bunch of stuff for Borderlands 4. I want to do a ton of stuff for 3. Like after 4's life cycle, I plan to do a bunch of stuff for 3. And then I'm going to do some stuff for 2 in between, just because everyone loves 2. 2's a great game. So yeah. Bye, everybody. Love y'all. Peace.